All right, guys, welcome back to another episode on the MMA.Unhinged podcast. Today, I'm once again joined by my co-host Oscar, and we're here to talk about some fights. Some great fights last weekend, and we've got some phenomenal fights this weekend. I'm always excited to talk about some fights, but I feel like this episode feels different. When we were recapping 267, then talk about 268, it was a big episode, but I also feel like this episode is up there with that.
Yeah, we had a phenomenal performance from one of the greatest fighters of all time to close out what was a really entertaining fight night. And then right after that, we got to preview the final pay-per-view of the year. This is a fantastic episode. Cannot wait to get into these recaps and breakdowns.
Yeah, 100%. 269 goes down this weekend. Two title fights, as you mentioned, done some killer main card fights. And when you see a name like Dominic Cruz on the prelims, you know you're stacked in for a great night.
Yeah, the UFC has really planned to end the year with a bang, and this is definitely the way to do it. Dustin Poirier has had a phenomenal story the whole year, and now he's finally getting his title shot. So I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to see what is next for Jose Aldo after his win over Rob Font. He won this fight 50-45, and I agreed with the judges. Even though Rob Font was the busier fighter, landing more, Jose Aldo did much more damage. Rob Font was stunned several times. I would say he was stunned at least 3 times. And I'm very surprised that Aldo did not finish this fight the amount of times he had Rob Font hurt. In the first round, Rob Font is looking great. He's really looking great. I was like, my goodness, Rob Font has figured out Jose Aldo. But then in the last 10 seconds, Jose Aldo nearly knocks out Rob Font. So I was thinking, man, Jose Aldo definitely has the power edge, and he continued to have it. And even when he got tired, he switched things up and went to the grappling. I was thinking, win or lose, Aldo will lose the last 2 rounds. He did not, and that was very impressive, was it not?
Yeah, 100%. We were talking before we went on air, we were talking about how we saw the old Aldo in this one, the old Aldo and the new Aldo, as you mentioned. In previous fights, we've seen him get tired. We saw it in the Peter Yan fight. He eventually got wear down by Peter Yan. But in this fight, he seemed that his condition and his cardio was there. He looked good. He went 5 rounds. He looked impressive. And what impressed me was he started to mix in, his takedowns, his grappling. We've seen it with the old Aldo. And when his coaches said, Aldo, you need to use them leg kicks, that majority, that's kind of turned the fight a little bit as well.
Yeah, just 10 leg kicks made all the difference in the world. Rob Font was not striking the same way after he took those leg kicks. And in that round, Jose Aldo did not stun Rob Font. He did not rock him. He actually hurt his leg, and that's what gave him the round, in my opinion. So, man, I'm very impressed with Jose Aldo being a full mixed martial artist that night. He used every facet of the game to do well in the fight. He used his body shots. He used the striking of all the leg kicks, and he used the grappling, which he really never does. Last time he used the grappling was against Marlon Vera. But yeah, Jose Aldo can now rely on more things than he did back in the day. So the guy's evolved. Is he in the prime that he was back then? No, he's not the best version of himself, but even like 15% less than what he used to be gets him very far. In fact, now he's ranked number 3 in the world. He's on a win streak, 3-fight win streak. He could be 1 fight away from getting another crack at the title against Piotr Jan. So the future's looking bright for Jose Aldo after a time when people thought that he was done, including myself. When you take a beating like that from a guy, especially when you're at the phase that he was in his career, you usually don't recover. And he's recovered in spectacular fashion, putting on 2 of the best performances of his career back to back. And I just have to applaud that.
And yeah, as you mentioned there, ranked number 3 in the world now. So, if I'm the UFC, I think I'm booking Jose Aldo versus TJ Dillashaw, and then obviously you got Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Yan for the undisputed title.
Yeah, there's a ton of good options for Jose Aldo. They could do Murad Dvalishvili, TJ Dillashaw, or Corey Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen just lost the interim title fight. Sure, he's on a skid, but the guy, it's you can't argue that he's not at the top of the division right now. And TJ Dillashaw's return date, who knows when it'll be. Those knee surgeries are a little tricky when it comes to return dates. So a lot of good options for Jose, and they're all good options and all options that'll probably get him a title shot with a win. And who knows if people fall out of fights, he could just get a title shot right now. And moving on to somebody that I believe is a couple years away from a title shot, Rafael Fiziev. He got a wheel kick, 1 out of 13 in UFC history, and he did it against his former teammate Brad Riddell. And this was a very competitive and technical fight, and you could tell that they weren't as loose as they usually were, especially Brad Riddell, because they had already trained together. They already, had something in the back of the head affecting them, and it affected Brad Riddell more, and that made all the difference in the world. Fiziev was looser out there. He slightly outstruck Brad in rounds 1 and 2. And in the third round, my goodness, those quick kicks, they found the mark and finished the fight. I had no problem whatsoever with that stoppage. I really thought Brad was out on his feet. And Fiziev now moves up in the rankings. I believe he's number 12 in the world now. Number 11, actually.
Yeah, which I thought you might break into the top 10 with this one, but as you mentioned, a very tough fight for Rafael, and I think this is what he's going to need. He's been tested, and again, as you mentioned, against his friend, they've trained together at Tiger Muay Thai, so they know each other's game, in and out, and it was just hard, as you mentioned, it was a bit tough on Brad Riddell, and that spinning wheel kick, man, what a highlight reel knockout for him to get another on his highlight reel. But man, he moves onto the division. As you mentioned, not too far for title shot. I'd like to see him make another step up in that lightweight division. If you look at the lightweight division, he's got matches and matches that he can potentially get matched up with. A phenomenal, division. Maybe, I don't want to sacrifice Tony Ferguson, but I'd love to see that one happen.
That's definitely an option, but I'm such a big Tony Ferguson fan. I don't even know who to match him up with these days. I think a better option is somebody in the top 10, somebody that's just ranked one spot above him, Gregor Gillespie. Gregor Gillespie was actually booked to fight Brad Riddell, and why not give him a tougher matchup? I think that would be an excellent test for Fiziev's skill set, and it would guarantee that the winner gets one of those bigger names like a Chandler or Dos Anjos.
Oh, could you imagine a fight between Chandler and Rafael? Oh my God!
That a lot of people were suggesting that they like the prospect of that fight. If you want to see that fight, just stop by Sanford MMA. Those guys train together. That fight is not going to be happening in the UFC octagon.
Yeah, 100%. But what I thought would go differently is Jimmy Crute. I thought Jimmy Crute was going to get the better of Hill in this fight, and even on the feet, I thought Jimmy Crute might have had an advantage. I thought he was, he might not be a better technical boxer than Hill, but I feel like the volume, maybe the power, the difference between the power might be an advantage. But Hill shot me up in 42 seconds or 48 seconds. His power came on show. He knocked out Jimmy Crute with that perfect, that right check hook. It was on the button, sweet as a nut, and knocked him out. And you knocked him out in 48 seconds and put his lights out. And we've seen it, we've seen it in the Anthony Smith fight. He got hurt with his leg, and now he's been finished again. And you just want to see Jimmy Crute, go back to the basics. Pick up a few wins and get it together again and have another run. But Hill, oh my God. This guy's got some power for skinny arms. Like Azrael Adesanya, this guy can bang.
100%. I've never been more impressed with Jamal Hill than I have been watching this fight. He knocked down Jimmy Crute early, and then Jimmy Crute really never recovered and broke his orbital bone and his nose. Jamal Hill can do serious damage, and I think he's just going to continue doing more damage. This was kind of the performance I expected from Jamal Hill when he fought Paul Craig, but Jimmy Crute just did not initiate the grappling quick enough for the fight to really be competitive. And he's definitely got some things to work on defensively. And I believe he's 26, 27, Jimmy Crute. So he definitely can bounce back after this. Jamal Hill, this was only his 10th professional fight, so this guy can also get better as well. So that you can never underestimate that Jamal Hill power. He was a pretty big underdog, and I was super confident in Jimmy Crute, but things just didn't work out like I thought they would. And Jamal Hill put him away quickly. And the next step for Jamal Hill will be an exciting one. He called out Paulo Costa and Johnny Walker. I think both fights could headline any fight night. And both fights were definitely ended in a knockout. But we have no idea where Paulo Costa is going to fight next. So I think let's go with a safer choice for his next fight. Let's do Johnny Walker next. That is going to be a firecracker matchup.
Yeah, them boys could headline any event, any fight night. It would be a fantastic matchup. I'd love to see that one done. You know, when you see Johnny Walker at the top of the card, the main event, you're always tuning in because he's entertaining. He loves to scrap. And I'd like, as I was mentioning, Jimmy Crute. You know, I'd like to see him maybe pick some wins up. I think the smart move for UFC and Jimmy Crute would be Volkan Oezdemir, both on a losing streak at the moment. Would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's also an option. Jamal Hill is on the rise. He only has one loss, and that was to Paul Craig. And if they fight again, I would pick Jamal Hill again because I don't think he would put himself in the same spot. So, yeah, Jamal Hill has a very bright future. He knocked out OSP, and after that knockout, I was thinking this guy, he's going to the moon. I think he'll be in the top 10 for a while now. And moving on to somebody else that definitely has longevity in the game, Clay Guida with a submission of ADCC champion Leonardo Santos in round 2. This was an amazing comeback. This might be the comeback of the year. Clay Guida was hurt in a big way early in this fight. He got kicked right in the stomach, and he folded, man. This guy folded. Leonardo Santos was landing huge shots, scored one knockdown after a knee, and I was thinking Clay Guida is done. And Leonardo Santos was looking at the ref, trying to get the fight stopped because he knew if he keeps on going, he'll have nothing left in the tank. And that's what happened. I was watching the fight with my father in the room, and he was thinking, why is the ref not stopping? This fight is over. And I was agreeing with him. But once they stood back up, I told him, Clay Guida is going to win this fight. And that's what happened. Clay Guida, he barely threw any strikes to end the round, but he got a takedown. And you just knew Leonardo Santos was done when he walked out in the second round. Could barely hold his arms up. And Clay Guida got a lazy mat return, took his back, and Leonardo Santos had the fight taken out of him when his gas tank was gone. So Clay Guida got a crazy submission this year. And this is Clay Guida stuff, man. The guy does not get tired. And if you can't put him away early, you're in for a pretty tough night.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, if you can't put him away early, and not a lot of people have, been able to put Clay Guida away early, he can take a lot of shots, and he's proved it in this fight once again. And what he took about like 10 knees to the face, and he just, he walked off, and it's just incredible. This guy, what is he? Surprisingly, I believe Santos is older than Guida, but Guida has been around for years and years inside the UFC, and this guy continues to do it at the best. And as you mentioned, one of the best comebacks we'll probably see this year. And another Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, one of the best, gets submitted. We've seen it with Rafael Vieira, and now we see it here with Santos.
Jacare Souza as well got his arm broken this year. It's been a year of madness in the UFC. We've seen some wild upsets this year. And this was another one of them. Clay Guida just could not be more impressive in this stage of his career. I really thought, if you asked me like in 2018, where would Clay Guida be in 2021? I would say he's probably retired. But no, Clay Guida has a ton of fight left in him. And I just have to give credit to Keith Peterson for kind of switching things up after the Dominic Cruz fight. He now gives fighters every chance every chance possible to get back in the fight. And 2 times this year, I can point out this time and Merab Dvalishvili against Marlon Moraes, where he lets a fighter get back in the fight and the fighter actually wins. So shout out to Keith Peterson.
Yeah, what an incredible fight that was as well, by the way. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a one for me to watch again Murat Dvalishvili versus Marlon Moraes was an incredible fight, a great banger. But another one as well was Chris Curtis versus Brendan Allen. And in that first round, he definitely went all in. I feel like in that first round, he was trying to prove a point because the fight, one of the fighters that he lost to, Sean Strickland, was in the corner of Chris Curtis. And he looked like he was trying to prove a point, as I was meant trying to prove a point in that fight. And it was just the conditioning and the stamina will kind of let Brandon down in this fight. And Chris Curtis, he loves stepping in at short notice and getting the job done. And he got that knockdown, in the round 2, and you eventually finished the fight. But his accuracy, his sharpness with his hands, and definitely that power, you can see it in the octagon. He's definitely someone to not mess around with. I'd love to see him, continue in the UFC and keep getting the wins behind his belt. But man, what an incredible performance of short notice once again.
You could see all throughout fight week that Brandon Allen was taking Chris Curtis lightly. He said, "I'll fight anybody." He really didn't care about the opponent, and because he kept on switching from opponent to opponent. So he said, "I'll fight anybody." And I kind of don't like when that happens, when fighters take stay busy fights, because they're really not coming in with the right mindset, in my opinion. And that's what happened here. Chris Curtis, he did Chris Curtis things. He uses boxing, went to the body, and Brendan Allen, historically, it does tire out a little bit in fights. And I really trusted his durability heading into this one, because Chris Curtis's teammate, Panheli Soriano, he landed some big bombs on Brendan Allen, but he could not get him out of there. But Chris Curtis, a welterweight, is out here sleeping middleweight prospects on short notice. This is wild stuff. Chris Curtis is now 6-0 this year, and this is a guy who I think will not be that big of an underdog against many guys now, because it's bit betters in the butt twice in a row. I know a guy that lost a significant amount of money betting on Brendan Allen, and I don't think that guy will be betting against Chris Curtis again in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Chris Curtis is an absolute savage. His teammate on the card, who lost to Dusko Todorovic, his name doesn't come.
Maki Pitolo.
Yeah, Maki Pitolo. There you go. He wants to get that one back for Maki Pitolo. But I thought that was a little bit of he wants that one next as well. And I thought that was a bit of a step back in competition. I feel like where he is, he's on the verge of top 15 at middleweight.
Yeah, I agree. Brendan Allen was gonna fight Brad Tavares, who I believe is sitting at number 13 right now. And Chris Curtis just ran through Brendan Allen. So I definitely think that that's a possibility, having Chris Curtis get a ranked opponent next. But I really want him to see at welterweight his true weight class. But apparently he does not plan on going back there. He actually says he's going to put on a little bit of size and stick around.
Well, it's good to see guys doing that in MMA. Putting a little bit of muscle. Maybe the weight cut. Maybe he doesn't like the weight cut back down to 170 pounds, but you don't want to see him put too much on, because then that weight cut will get tougher. So maybe he just likes to have a calm weight cut and get to the fight nice and safe. But yeah, it was a fantastic performance. Chris Curtis finally got to the UFC. He's had 2 fights in the UFC this year, but he's had 6 overall in MMA. And he's gone 6-0.
Yeah, Chris Curtis has a very bright future ahead of him, and I'm not going to be that comfortable picking against him like I was on the show. I was thinking Brendan Allen probably has him outmatched almost everywhere. That just wasn't the case, and that body work really paid off over time and got him the victory. Moving on.
Well, I was going to move on, but somebody that I won't be picking in his next fight is probably Mickey Gall, because he's probably not going to be in the UFC after this one.
I would say that's not fair. He's only on a 1-fight skid now, but he did look a little impressive in this fight, even in defeat. I feel like the Mickey Gall of old probably would have gotten finished in this one, but in this one he just stuck it through and fought back. But Morono was a step ahead of him the entire time, and Morono knocked him down early, and Morono was also fighting in front of his dad. I thought Morono could have made this an easier fight for himself if he just went to the ground and just let Mickey Gall try to search for a submission off of his back that he was never going to get. But Morono doesn't really fight that way. He just banged it out on the feet, and it was his fight. He really dictated what happened in there. And yeah, this is a classic Morono performance. And this is a guy that's very reliable to fight hard for 15 minutes wherever it takes place.
Yeah, the reason why I said that is because the UFC have been ruthless on their cuts recently. As we've seen, Kevin Lee recently getting cut by the UFC. Um, I'm not saying it's a possibility, but it's definitely out there that Mickey Gall could eventually get the axe. But you want to see him take a step back and maybe get some wins, get some confidence back, and eventually maybe take a run back at the division. But yeah, he's been in the UFC since he was 1-0. He's had 9 fights in the UFC. He's experienced, but maybe it's time to maybe take his talents elsewhere. Build up some confidence, then come back.
Yeah, I really think Mickey Gall is like a bottom tier welterweight at this point. There's if you've seen the guys coming in the contender series, a good amount of them will beat Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall, if he doesn't out grapple his opponents, he tends to have a tough time and tire out. That's what happened out. That's what happened here with Morono. Morono is a black belt himself, owns a Gracie Baja gym. He was not intimidated by Gall, and he looked great out there. So we'll move on to the main event of the prelims, as we discussed earlier. Maki Pitolo lost to Dusko Todorovic by first round TKO via ground and pound. Maki Pitolo, he made the mistake. He did the gamble, the guillotine gamble, and it did not pay off. Dusko was able to get out of the guillotine, and once he got on top and started landing the heavy ground and pound, Maki Pitolo could not defend himself intelligently, and the fight had to be stopped. And this is what I wanted to see more from Dusko Todorovic, because I don't think he's the best fighter defensively on the feet. So if you got a good skill set, if you're a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, why not take it to the ground and do some work here? That's how he's gotten his 2 UFC wins. When he fought Dequan Townsend, ground and pound. And then this win against Michael Patello, ground and pound as well. So I think he should look to grapple more in fights. Because when he stood up with his opponents, Soriano and Rodriguez, he lost those fights. So I think Dushko should adjust his game plans in the future.
Yeah, 100%. As you mentioned, going back to his grappling, going back to his roots, and he got the job done. And as you mentioned, TKO finishes. When it did get to the ground, though, it looked a little bit too easy for Dusko Todorovic. He moved, grappled Makapitolo with a little bit of ease, and then eventually got his back and just didn't stop punching and got that finish. But Makapitolo, I talked about Mickey Gall getting the cut.
Oh yeah, I said the loser gets cut heading into this, because Maki's on a 2-fight losing streak now. So yeah, the loser of this was gonna get cut. 2 contender series alums, and it just didn't work out for them in the long run for Maki Pitolo. Moving on to Manel Kape's first round KO against Zhalgas Zhumagulov. This was the told you so fight of the week. I was big on Zhalgas Zhumagulov. He's a plus 240 underdog. And I was thinking Zhalgas Zhumagulov is going to be fighting a Manel Kape that is hesitant like he was in his other fights. But Zhalgas, he actually brought the dog out of Manel Kape. He brought the fight to Manel Kape, and he paid for it. I've never seen Zhalgas fight as aggressive as he did, and it kind of turned Manel Kape into the monster that we saw back in Ryzen. And goodness gracious, this guy's terrifyingly quick when he's trying to finish you, and that's what he did out there. He knocked down Zhalgas, and then if you saw that like 20 punch combo that he finished him off with, I was so impressed by the star boy Manel Kape. On most cards, he would get a bonus, but not on this one. And I feel bad for him, because he probably would have gotten a bonus in his last one had it not been for the weight miss. But 2 back-to-back first-round KOs for Manel Kape. This is what we were expecting from Manel Kape when he came into the UFC. So it kind of feels like he's reached his potential now, and it's time for bigger fights. And I think the next opponent for Manel Kape should be Tim Elliott.
Yeah, we've got different matchups, which is interesting. But as you mentioned, Manel Kape, fantastic performance. And then you mentioned he was terrifyingly quick. And this was the difference in this fight, is that Zhumagulov just couldn't get, he couldn't catch Manel Cap coming in or out. Manel Cap was in, he's out, and he's gone. And his punches, his combinations were too quick, too sharp. And man, he put him out and put his lights out. It was phenomenal. But yeah, for me, for Manel Cap, I would like to see Brandon Royval.
Oh my goodness, Brandon Royval. Honestly, is there a bad matchup out there for Brandon Royval? Because that guy is the flyweight Tony Ferguson. I'll say it many times. Always goes out there looking to attack you from odd angles, and he'll entertain you win or lose. Yeah, I'm not mad at that pick at all. So those picks for me are interchangeable.
Yeah, 100%. Manel Cap, as you mentioned, a former rising champion. He's finally doing it in the UFC now, and a step up in competition. With well, no disrespect to Zumagor, but to get that top 10, maybe a top 10 before opponent next is what awaits Manel Cap after this one. But on the bright, on a good side, Brian Barberena is back in the win column. It was really good to see him back in the win column against a tough Darion Weeks. He 5-0, definitely brought the heat. He was definitely game, and it was phenomenal to see Brian Barberena just get that win under his belt again.
Yeah, I felt like this was somewhat of a return to form for Brian Barberena in his last fight. I was very unimpressed by his efforts against Jason Witt early, because I feel like that the old Brian Barberena would have never gotten hurt that bad by Jason Witt, who's just not a great striker. But Darren Weeks, a much better striker, much more dangerous guy, and Brian Barberena, I was quite impressed with his head movement this time around. He got out of the way, made Weeks miss a ton of strikes, and Brian Barberena just fought at a pace that Weeks could not keep up with, and he made it a classic Brian Barberena fight. Just made it nice, and good old sloppy brawl, and we all enjoyed it out there. That third round was phenomenal, and Brian Barberena got the win here. I thought he would have the grappling advantage here, but Weeks actually had the grappling advantage in that fight. So I think Weeks definitely has a good future, because he can strike well and he can grapple well. But Brian Barberena was the vet coming into this one. Weeks came in on short notice. I was a little confused by this one being a pick'em, and Brian Barberena performed well.
Yeah, as we were talking about this before, the fight, we're talking about the experience and the being inside the octagon for a very long time, and I feel like that really paid the price in this one. And as you mentioned, Weeks coming in short notice. He's only 5-0, but the most important thing now, as you said, he's a good fighter. He's going to learn from this, but the most important thing now is he's inside the UFC, and he's definitely going to get another shot. But yeah, phenomenal performance. But if we're talking about phenomenal performance, we've got to put Vilmus up there. She put on an absolute show versus Martin. And as you can see there, 30-27, 29-28, 29-28. But man, her striking.
Yeah, it was looking really good out there. This was the Shine Vlismas I hoped would debut against Montserrat Conejo, but unfortunately that didn't play out that way. And then she fought Gloria DePaula, got a quick first round KO. So we really didn't get to see her fleshed out skill set like we did on the Contender Series, and she went out there on short notice. She just had COVID like 2 weeks ago, and she goes out there and puts on probably the best performance of her career against Marley Martin, and she earns a fight of the night bonus. Did I think this was the best fight of the night? I thought this was the third best fight of the night, but hey, both of these women probably get paid way less than most of the people on the card, so not mad at these two getting paid, especially Cheyenne, who's going through a divorce, so she's definitely gonna need that lawyer money. So not mad at that, but Marley Martin was clearly a step behind the whole fight. Some of the judges gave the first round to Marley Martin, but I didn't agree with that. Shine Blissmas was just lighting her up the whole fight. And Marley Martin requested some time for development, and she has developed, but she's not quite there. She could get cut after this one, to be honest. Because I actually picked Marley Martin to win after the show last week. On the show, I picked Vlismas, but I picked Marlon Martin to win finally because that she might have that wrestling advantage, but really didn't go there, really didn't find any openings to do it. And I was just very disappointed by Marlon Martin's performance. But Shine, on the other hand, crazy output in this one. And yeah, the best she's ever looked, I would say.
Well, crazy output for both women, and as you see, they talked about the wrestling 0 out of 5 takedowns for Martin, but 236 strikes thrown by Martin and 283 strikes thrown by Vlisma. So it was a crazy high-paced fight and a great one on the prelims. And that one also went to the scorecards, and it was the correct winner. But this next one also went to the scorecards. But I
Yeah.
believe Oscar's going to have his say in this one, and he's going to believe it should have went to Mennefield.
Yeah, I saw William Knight post these same stats on his Instagram page, and he was talking about men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. You are right, William Knight. 6 minutes and 25 seconds of control time is all I need to know. Since when does 3 minutes of control time not matter in a fight? Like, I simply don't get it. William Knight in that third round, if he would have done some damage, if he would have rocked Menfield like he did in the first two, I would have respected it. But that's not what happened. He really didn't land anything huge. Did Menfield land anything huge in that third round? No, but he did get that control time, and I honestly thought control time counted for something in MMA, because why else do people hold them against the fence? Because it counts for something. But the judges disagreed, and I certainly didn't. This was not a Ketlin Deer Yana Kunitskaya situation where there was like zero activity. Menefield was landing a couple of strikes. He was mixing it in. He was actually trying to actively wrestle as well, but I just didn't see it. Knight didn't do enough in the 2 minutes of the stand in that third round to get the nod. And honestly, if you want to talk about who won the fight, Menfield lost his fight. He was scared of the power the whole way through. But if you want to talk about the mixed martial arts battle, I did think that Menfield won.
Yeah, and I mean, who would be scared of the power of Knight? He's big. You know, he hits like a truck, and you can hit you even if it's the third round, the second round. If you're tired and it's 50 seconds left, he can still knock you out. And I don't blame Menefield, but I did think he won this fight, and I thought he should have won the other way. I do agree with you on that. But we'll move on to the next fight. Chris Gutsumaya versus Claudio Puelles in this one, and he gets a submission via knee bar. I wasn't actually watching for this one. I did see the smoker, the knockout, but I was busy on this one. I had to do some work, but I know my man Oscar watched this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I picked Grutzmacher to win this fight, but Claudio Puelles showed up a better striker than I've ever seen him. In his last fight, we did not see a ton of striking. We saw a lot more grappling, but in this one, we saw a lot more striking, and it was very clear that Puelles was the better athlete, the younger, quicker guy, and on the ground, he was definitely a step ahead. Grutzmacher's get-up game it's mediocre at best, and that's what it looked like here. Grutzmacher made things a little close in the second round. He did get on some control time on top, but very unimpressed by Grutzmacher. And plus, on the other hand, who's very young, is always getting better, and he's the only fighter in UFC history to win via knee bar twice. So that's something he can always brag about. And he's the face of Peruvian MMA. So this is a guy that UFC will definitely look to market in the future. And constantly improving. Puelles under the tutelage of Henry Hooft over at Stanford MMA. Bright future is ahead for Puelles. And we'll move on to the first fight of the night, where Luis Smolka came in as the favorite against Vince Morales. I was very confident that Smolka would win this, but it just didn't go his way. Once you get clipped behind the ear, there's kind of nothing you could do. And Morales jumped on him and finished that fight in impressive fashion.
I think what this fight told us is if Smolka was in there with Sean O'Malley, he could have got seriously hurt.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. That was bad matchmaking by the UFC. I thought we would see this fight get extended. I thought we would see a lot more Smolka grappling. I actually thought this was an easier matchup for Smolka than the Jose Quinones fight was, but the difference between this one and that one is that Smolka got clipped behind the ear and didn't get to tire out his opponent and break him on the ground. So that was the difference between this one. It's a wild game out there, and Smoker lost it. Yeah, kind of guy with an up and down UFC career. He can always improve, and Morales really needed that win, in my opinion. Now, that may have saved his UFC career, and that's the best win of his UFC career so far. Smoka, a guy who's been around the block. And if you want to talk about guys that have been around the block, guys with so much UFC experience, this fight is a phenomenal headliner for any pay-per-view. Charles Oliveira is defending his UFC title against Dustin Poirier in the main event of UFC 269, and there's so many storylines heading into this one. Charles
Yeah,
Oliveira has found new life at lightweight, has he not?
100%. You know, he was having the run at 145 pounds, and then stepped up against lightweight, and he's looked incredible. We've seen it in his last fight. Against Michael Chandler, he got knocked down, but man, his striking is incredible, and I don't want to overlook him in this fight. His striking is incredible. I feel like he can hang with Poirier on the feet. But obviously we could talk about his grab. We know how good he's grappling. He's got the most submissions in the UFC, so we don't really need to really talk about that. But the best thing about Oliveira is he can mix it up, and he's one of the best inside the lightweight division at mixing it up. And his what I love about his striking is it's fundamental, but it's beautifully fundamental. It's everything, all the technique is just correct where it's meant to be. And that left hook against Michael Chandler is probably one of the best left hooks I've ever seen in my life. But it was simple, but it was just picture perfect. I loved it, and went on to finish the fight. And if another thing about Oliveira as well, if he has the chance to finish you, it's pretty much it's over. He either hurts you, then submits you, or he knocks you out.
100%. Oliveira actually has the most finishes in UFC history. This guy is on a fantastic run. He's on a 9-fight win streak and arguably the toughest division in the entire sport. That is very impressive. His last 2 wins were over Tony Ferguson and Michael Chandler. He was on the road to losing that fight to Michael Chandler. It was actually scored a 10-8 by the judges. And I thought if there was 30 more seconds left in that first round that Michael Chandler might be your champion right now, but that's not how it worked out. Charles Oliveira was given a minute to rest on the stool. Once he got up, Michael Chandler, and me as well, I thought he had the fight in the bag, so he was not totally defensively responsible. And he goes in there and he gets clipped right away, and he is not able to recover. And Charles Oliveira lands another left hook from behind and knocks him out. And yeah, the difference between Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier is a better defensive fighter. He's got a better gas tank. Got probably has better BJJ, I would definitely say. And he's got a better chin. And my goodness, Poirier is meant to last. If you want to talk about battle tested, Poirier is the definition of battle tested. He's gone to war with Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez, Anthony Pettis. So many guys have. Dan Hooker, one of the best fights I've ever seen. This guy is super durable. And Charles Oliveira, in my opinion, does not have the power to intimidate Poirier whatsoever. I truly believe that Poirier will have a classic Poirier finish this time around. Will Charles Oliveira put him in very tough positions in the ground early? Yes, he will, but I think Poirier is good enough to survive those positions long enough to get Charles Oliveira into the second round. And when Poirier gets you rocked and he gets you against the fence and he starts loading those combos, your night is over most times, unless your name is Max Holloway or Dan Hooker. But yeah, I think this is going to be similar to the Eddie Alvarez finishes where he just rocks him and gets him against the fence. And Charles Oliveira, sure, he made a comeback in the last fight, showed that he can come back from adversity, but he still has that quit in him. I don't think that's something that can go away. In the Paul Felder fight, he had Paul Felder on top of him, beating him up, and his BJJ is his bread and butter, and he cannot submit Paul Felder, so he feels powerless. He can't get up. He's getting the crap beat out of him, and That's what Poirier did in his last fight of Connor. Got on top. Connor couldn't get up, could not get any submissions going, just getting the crap beat out of him. I think Poirier can do that as well here, but is that the smartest game plan? No, but I do think that Charles Oliveira, even though he's so fundamentally sound, his striking is so clean, does not overextend himself. He still gets hit, he still gets hurt. David Tamer fight, he got knocked down. Michael Chandler fight, he got knocked down, nearly finished. Dustin Poirier will find that finish. He'll find it in the late second round by TKO.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you on this one. I talked about how good Oliveira is, and if he hurts you, you get knocked down, then he's going to submit you. And if he doesn't submit you, he knocks you out. But if there's someone, as you were talking about, if there's someone that can survive punishment, that name is Dustin Poirier. He's done it in the past. Done against, as you mentioned, Gaethje, Alvarez. He's been there. He's done it, and so is Oliveira. But Dustin Poirier is a different animal when it comes to boxing and mixing up with the leg kicks and just his boxing so sharp. One of the sharpest that we have inside the UFC. And as you mentioned, what he does different to Michael Chandler is he's a much better defensive boxer, and we've seen him box well on the back foot and come forward and pressure well. And I believe this is going to be a good fight for Poirier. I feel like in the first round, facing a tough, a fresh Oliveira, he might get caught in some positions that he doesn't want to be in. But I believe Poirier has, the skills to be able to survive and get out of him. And I feel like he's going to end up on his back in that first round. And I feel like the second round and the third round, he's going to really come out strong and show why he is one of the best, the best lightweight in the world after Saturday.
One thing worth mentioning is Charles Oliveira is the only champion on the roster right now that has never seen a championship round. So if we see this fight, see a fourth round, Dustin Poirier, we know for a fact that this guy can fight hard for 25 minutes. We've seen it many times. In fact, he took a fifth round off of Max Holloway, the cardio king. So we know for a fact if we see a fourth or fifth round that Dustin Poirier will have in the bag. But I don't see it going that long. I see Poirier getting the second round TKO and becoming one of the nominees for Fight of the Year. He's looked really impressive in his first two wins this year, beating Conor McGregor, who, even though, the win is not as good as it once was, still, one of the most accomplished fighters in the sport, one of the best strikers in the sport, and Poirier has finished him twice. So Poirier's on a tremendous run, tremendous streak. In fact, if you look at his past 8 fights or so, the only loss is one of the greats, Khabib Nurmagomedov. So I think this is definitely an easier fight than Khabib Nurmagomedov, and I think he gets it done out here. I think Poirier has been walking around the uncrowned champ since January. I really thought January was a rightful title fight, but Dana White was still, messing around with Khabib, trying to get him to fight GSP. So that's why we didn't see the title be vacated and fought for on that night. But I think Poirier is the uncrowned champ, and he's going to prove it.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. This is a phenomenal fight, and I can't wait for it. We were talking about, the cardio, how many finishes that these both men have, and there's someone in the co-main event who also has a lot of finishes, and she likes to get it done early. And her name is Amanda Nunes, the Lioness. If you get hit by Amanda Nunes, it's pretty much over. And we've seen in the past, Julia Pena get submitted by JDR, Drain the Anime, a kickboxing world champion. And she's getting submitted. She got lazy with a takedown, got submitted by the guillotine, I think it was. And does Amanda Nunes have the skills? Yes, 100%. But I believe this one would be contested on the feet. We're seeing Pena take the center of the octagon, try a few takedowns, but Amanda Nunes will, get the better of them. And I think this is going to be a round 1 win for Amanda Nunes. I see it being a wipeout, a washout, and I see Amanda Nunes connecting clean at the end of round 1, and everyone's looking. We'll be talking about Amanda Nunes next week and be like, where does she go from here?
Yeah, Amanda Nunes has really cleared out 2 divisions at this point. Juliana Pena, in my opinion, didn't even deserve this title shot. She's only on a 1-fight win streak, and in that fight, when she fought, who was it, Sarah McMahon, I thought she was losing the fight, but we know Sarah McMahon is just terribly just not good defensively when it comes to the ground. And yeah, Pena caught her in that rear naked choke, and she called out Amanda. And there's really nobody else for Amanda to fight, so Amanda just had no choice but to say yes. So that's why we're in this spot. And Pena, she believes she's the caliber wrestler that can hold down Amanda for 25 minutes. I don't see it. I really don't see it. Pena will be moving forward. She stated this. And if you look at the Jermaine Durandamy fight, you know that Pena is a tough cookie. She walked forward against Jermaine Durandamy. Jermaine Durandamy is not to be taken lightly. She fought Amanda and she rocked Amanda in the second round. Actually beat Amanda on the feet in the second round. So much so that Amanda had to use it grappling the rest of the fight. And Amanda in that performance against Jermaine was not super impressive. She was very clearly tired and just was not the Amanda that was getting those quick finishes. So I feel that the weight cut to 135 is definitely affecting her performances at this point. John Anna keeps saying that Amanda Nunes probably doesn't have 3 weight cuts left in bantamweight. He says that it's just gets very tough on her. So that's why Man is actually campaigning for the UFC to sign more featherweight fighters because she hates this weight cut of bantamweight. And if that's the case, this fight can be somewhat competitive. But at the end of the day, I feel like Amanda's going to be searching for a finish here. And Pena, all she needs to do is make one mistake and she loses this fight. I think Amanda Nunes will have somewhat of a similar performance as she did against Megan Anderson. I think she makes Pena taste that power early. When Pena comes forward, I feel like she's going to make her taste the power. And when wrestlers taste power, they start to panic wrestle. And what happened when we saw Pena panic wrestle against Jermaine Durandamy, who I believe is simply a purple belt? She got guillotined and choked unconscious. And you're crazy if you think Nunes can't do the same thing here. Use it. She can also use a different submission as well. So I think Nunes wins via first round submission here. But the question is not if Amanda Nunes will win or lose this fight because she's clearly going to win. In my opinion, she's a minus 900 favorite. But the question is, how well will she perform? I think even if she performs bad, Pena can't win this fight.
Yeah, see, the thing is with Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko, they're in such a weird position where if they lose one round in a fight, everyone's like, "Wow, what a terrible performance!" But even though it was a good performance, they may have won 4 rounds of that fight. But if they let one slip, we're looking at it and we're thinking, that was a terrible performance from Amanda Nunes or Valentina Shevchenko. That's how high they've set the standard. And I believe Amanda Nunes this will be another shout. And I believe this will be a first round knockout. You've got a first round submission. So it's the battle of the finish. See who gets it right. But yeah, we're both going to Amanda Nunes. And I think that's the right pick. But, Julia Pena, you got to credit the confidence that she's coming in with. And could she be too confident, though? Too overconfident? Maybe think that she'd be able to take the shots and get clipped.
Yeah, Pena, do not take her lightly. Do not just assume that our picks are going to be right because Pena actually won the second round against Jermaine. She actually was winning the third round, but she got caught in that submission. And that's why, we're thinking Amanda can definitely wrap up submission here and get the win. Moving on to Jeff Neal fighting Santiago Ponzinibbio. There was really not a huge storyline heading into this one until Jeff Neal got arrested on Thanksgiving because, he had a drink and he was driving and he also had a weapon in the back. So it's not a good look for Jeff, but apparently his coach is saying that he was actually under the legal limit, and the only reason the weapon was legal was because he was intoxicated. So yeah, it's a weird situation. I personally just think Jeff Neal just had a slip up on the holiday. I'm not just gonna assume that the guy has had a terrible camp because of that, like a lot of people are, because the line has flipped. Jeff Neal was the favorite. After that report was released, he's now the underdog. And honestly, it's not a big thing enough for me to just assume that now Jeff Neal is going to lose this fight because Jeff Neal hits like a truck And not only that, his last two fights that interrupted his 6-fight win streak, those were fights coming off of a life-threatening infection. And he performed so poorly in his last fight, he gassed in his fight. That his coach Safe Saud said, "I'm not going to let you fight until we have those issues resolved." And he's booked for a fight, so I'm going to assume those issues are resolved. He's fighting a guy Santiago Ponzinibbio, who had a layoff of his own from 2018 to 20. It was 2021, I believe. Yes, he returned this year. He was on a 7-fight win streak, had just knocked out Neil Magny in the main event, and he gets knocked out by Li Jingliang. He looked very gun shy in that fight, and I don't think his chin is what it used to be. And then he fought Miguel Baeza. He was losing the fight to Miguel Baeza in the first round. His calf was getting beat up, and he was rocked, but he refused to go down without a fight, and he brought the fight to the young and inexperienced Miguel Baeza, and he wins the decision. But it was a close fight, and he got rocked hard in that fight. That was a war. And I think if you're telling me Neil Magny can't crack just as hard as Miguel Baeza and land the finishing blow, man, I'm telling you, I feel like Neil Magny is going to get a quick KO here, just like he did against Mike Perry. And I feel like it could definitely overshadow the arrest for Jeff Neal.
Yeah, and we were seeing Jeff Neal in his last recent performance. It was against Stephen Thompson, and then one that slipped my mind.
Neil Magny.
There we go, against Neil Magny, and as you were mentioning, battling a disease in that one, and didn't look himself. But in this one, it's safe side, as you mentioned. His coach was saying you're not fighting until you're cleared and you're fully healthy, and he's got a fight booked and he's ready for Saturday. That's 100% sure. He's always ready to fight, and 100% he's going to come in there on Saturday night and try and win the fight, obviously. But standing across the Santiago Ponzinibbio, but who I believe on his day could challenge anyone in the welterweight division. If you look at his run, 2018, he was going to fight Kamaru Usman, I believe.
Yeah, he was. He was on such a bright trajectory. I was very hyped for his return, but he fell flat. And yeah, honestly, don't have the faith in him that I used to. That's why I'm picking Jeff Neal here, a guy who truly hits like a truck, a guy who even when he doesn't knock out his opponents, he tends to knock them down. So that's what I'm betting on here. Jeff Neal doing a significant amount of damage and getting Ponzinibbio out of there.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the other side here. I'm going to go Santiago Ponzinibbio. But if you take away the arrest, and I just feel like Santiago Ponzinibbio on this day will be a better fighter. I don't think in 9 out of 10 times we probably see Jeff Neal win this fight. But I feel like Ponzinibbio is going to have the better night this night. I feel like the volume, mixing it up, is going to be crucial for Ponzinibbio, and I feel like we're going to really see it. And as we were talking about that, that arrest and the drinking, we'll put that aside. And I feel like Ponzinibbio is not the better fighter, but I feel like he's going to be the better fighter on the day.
Yeah, I would love to see Ponzinibbio put on a good performance here, but I really don't think he was the fighter that he was back in 2018, pre-injuries and all that. But we will have our question answered for the Told You So fight of the week. Moving on, Kai Kara France is welcoming Cody Garbrandt to the flyweight division. This is a move that I've been pretty excited for. Cody Garbrandt, if you've seen his recent pictures on Instagram, he's not looking like TJ Dillashaw at all, is he? He's looking just to be in really good shape, really shredded. And man, there's a lot of question marks for Cody Garbrandt heading into this. The weight cut can affect his chin. It can affect a lot of things. We don't know how his body will react to it because we've never seen it. Kai Kara France, on the other hand, he's been around in this flyweight division a long time, and he's really proven himself with fights against Brandon Royval. Even though he was not on the winning end of that fight, he looked very impressive in that fight. Had Brandon Royval in big trouble, and he was in big trouble in his last fight against Rogerio Bontorin. He was about to get submitted, but then he gets the guy clipped big time, and the guy falls flat on his face, and He gets the win there. That was a big comeback. And if you look at the names on his resume, Tyson Nam, Holly Paiva, who's on this card, Arichi Lang, those are some good wins for Kai Kara France. So against Cody Garbrandt here, I believe that Cody Garbrandt is not truly affected by the weight. Cody Garbrandt should win this fight a decent amount of times. Cody Garbrandt is a world-class fighter on his best night, and we saw his best night. It was against Dominic Cruz, who's one of the greatest fighters of all time, and he made Dominic Cruz look silly out there. He had Dominic Cruz hurt bad on multiple occasions, was taunting, he was dancing in there, and that's the Cody Garbrandt that a lot of people wish would have, showed up after that, but that's not the case. He got starched by TJ Dillashaw twice. Then he got knocked out by Pedro Munoz. So after that, he switched up the style against Rafael Sunsao with a little more patient, and then gets a crazy knockout. But then he returns against Rob Font, and what do we see happen there? Cody Garbrandt just was not focused. It was just a complete off night for him. So yeah, if he has an off night here, he might get knocked out. But I'm just gonna assume that being in a new weight class is gonna be very committed. He's gonna be very focused, and I think we're gonna see Cody Garbrandt show up big time here and get a unanimous decision here. And put on a really exciting fight against Kai Kara France.
Yeah, 100%. This is going to be one of the fights of the night. So I feel like we're going to be looking at this one next week and talk about wow, what a phenomenal fight. But when Cody, Garbrandt announced that he was dropping down to 125 pounds, it was before the Sensao fight because he announced it. But then he took the Sensao fight and then he got that win. But the UFC were going to throw him in there with Davison Figueiredo for the belt, and then obviously he fell out of that fight and. We saw Brandon Moreno step in, I believe, and he got the win. But yeah, Cody Garbrandt was going to get thrown straight into the deep end at a title shot. And, obviously, he doesn't have that shot now, but I feel like he's still getting thrown in the deep end against Kai Kara France. That phenomenal fighter, 125 pounds, and striking wise is absolutely phenomenal. We saw it in his last fight against Bonneton, and knocking him out and putting him face first on the canvas. It was incredible. But there's one thing with Cody Garbrandt. At 135 pounds, I regarded him as one of the quickest fighters that we've ever seen inside the UFC. And he's dropping down to flyweight. And what happens when you drop weight? You seem to be quicker. And I feel like, how can Cody Garbrandt get any quicker? It's beyond me. And I feel like the speed is going to be too much for Kai Kara France in this one.
Also, so you're thinking Kai Kara France will win the fight or lose the fight?
No, lose the fight. I mean, the speed of Cody Garbrandt will be unmatched for Kai Kara France because at 135 pounds, I thought Cody Garbrandt. I think Cody Garbrandt and John Dodson, one of the quickest fighters I've ever seen in the mixed martial arts, and Cody Garbrandt dropping down to 125 pounds. He's losing weight, so that means he's going to be quicker.
Yeah, speed kills, and Cody Garbrandt has always had some of the quickest hands here. So if he looks better than he did at bantamweight, my goodness, he could become champion again. Who knows? And I think with a win here, he will get a title shot because he was already given a title shot anyway. But with the trilogy between Moreno Figueiredo being committed to, he's in this spot now. And yeah, I think with a win here, the future would be very bright for him. And we'll move on to Holly and Paiva versus Sugar Sean O'Malley. I feel like
the Sugar Show.
A lot of casual fans will have their eye on this one for sure, because Sean O'Malley has aligned himself with a lot of internet stars, including the infamous 6ix9ine, and those guys will actually be in attendance for this one, cheering him on. So you can only imagine what that post-fight celebration will be looking like. So the pick here for me is quite simple.
Good post-fight celebrations on this one. I mean, we've got the Australian Taito Avasa on the
100%. Sugar Sean O'Malley is my pick here, and I'm not entirely sure when he gets the knockout, but I feel like he'll get the knocked out a little later. I think he'll get a third round TKO here. Holly and Paiva in his last fight against Kyler Phillips, he was fighting a Kyler Phillips that was ultra aggressive, Kyler Phillips that was very confident. Kyler Phillips hurt Paiva bad twice in the first round, and he was on the road to finishing that fight. That fight would have been over. There was 10 seconds left in that round, but there were not. And we saw Paiva make an epic comeback. Paiva then had Kyler Phillips very tired, and then he started rocking Kyler Phillips, and he started getting takedowns and accruing control time, and he won that fight. I personally thought that was a draw, but Paiva did win the last 2 rounds. But I don't think Sean O'Malley is the same fighter as Kyler Phillips in terms of he's not going to rush that knockout. If you've seen Sugar Sean O'Malley's fights, he'll actually knock a guy down, and he won't go in for that ground and pound. He'll hope the guy just is out, and he'll walk away. Sugar Sean O'Malley wants to get these flashy knockouts so he can get the clips going viral on the internet. And I think that's what's going to happen here. He's going to be very patient. He's going to hurt Paiva a ton of times, but he's going to wait until the third round to really chase that finish. I think he gets it because Paiva's gas tank is not great, and he definitely gets sloppy. And Sugar Sean O'Malley is very clearly the better striker here. I think he counters Paiva beautifully and gets a highlight reel TKO in that third round. But do not underestimate Raulian Paiva. The guy has serious power for a guy that moved up, and I think he's going to take down Sugar Sean here. But I feel like Sugar Sean can definitely get up from those takedowns and punish Paiva on the feet. Do you agree with my pick?
Yes, 100%. And what you were saying there, you said that Sugar Sean, when he's striking, it's beautiful. And I think I can't remember the words he used, but pretty much Sugar Sean O'Malley can end the fight whenever he wants. He can hit you with any strike at any time, and I feel like he gets to pick and choose when he wants to finish the fight. And we saw it in the Thomas Almeida fight. He knocked him down. He walked away. He didn't want it to. It was the end of the fight. Let's be honest. It was the end of the fight, and the referee let it go on for some reason, and then Thomas Almeida took unnecessary punishment. It should have been stopped, and he took them, the big ground and pound. But that ground and pound was a highlight reel, and obviously the celebration was a highlight reel. And I believe we're going to see another one in this fight. And Sean O'Malley chooses when he wants to finish the fight on the feet, and I feel like he's going to take a few rounds to finish this one. But as you mentioned, you can't rule out Raulian Paiva in this one. He's a phenomenal fighter. He's tested some good fighters, but I feel like Sean O'Malley will be just on a different level for him in this one.
Moving on to what may be fight of the night, the main event of the prelims. Josh Emmett is back after his fight of the year contender against Shane Burgos, and he's fighting Dan Ige, who's coming off a loss to the Korean Zombie. This is a big fight for both guys. Both guys actually have pretty similar styles. They love to bang on the feet, and I actually have to go for a little bit of a second. Can you take over?
Yeah, 100%. We see Josh, as you mentioned, Josh Emmett, returning after his fight of the night, fight of the year candidate against Shane Burgos, and then we got Dan Ige returning. I thought it was his last fight. Was it his last fight against Gavin Tucker? I believe that was that crazy knockout inside. What was it? 30 seconds. It was a phenomenal one. But Josh Emmett, man, he hits like an absolute truck, and this is phenomenal. I can't wait to see it. As you've seen before. Danny Ige fought with Gavin Tucker, then he fought with the Korean Zombie. But yeah, Josh Emmett hits like an absolute truck. You can never rule this guy out at any moment in the fight. We saw it against Michael Johnson. Man, he absolutely he can shoot a punch from anywhere, anytime, and get the knockout. And I believe we might see this happen. But Danny Ige, he's a Hawaiian. He's got that Hawaiian heart. He can take a lot of shots on the chin. But man, Josh Emmett, man, he's phenomenal. The thing is with Josh Emmett is he can mix up the takedowns. He's not very submission active, but he can definitely get that takedown. I don't think he will throw in this one. I feel like Josh Emmett is going to want this one on the feet, and this is going to be a good matchup for Josh Emmett. Man, if you see Josh Emmett, he's always coming in shape, fighting over a Team Alpha Male. I believe he's still there, but Josh Emmett hits that an absolute truck. Do I believe there's going to be a knockout in this one? I believe not. I think Dan Ige will be able to survive. But I am going on the side of Josh Emmett. I feel like he's going to get this one done. Returning after a fantastic fight against Shane Burgos. And I'm excited to see this one get underway. And I just can't wait. This one's on the prelims. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's two X factors in this fight for me. There's Josh Emmett's power advantage, which he definitely has a power advantage. And there's Dan Ige's BJJ advantage. Danny Gay is a tremendous grappler. Sure, in his Korean Zombie fight, did not really look like it. He was completely outmatched in that one. But if you look at the Mirsad Bektic fight, look at some of those other fights, he's a really good grappler. But the thing is here, I feel like these guys are gonna have their wrestling cancel each other out. I think they're gonna bang on the feet, and Josh Emmett has the power advantage. Even when Josh Emmett doesn't knock guys out, he does knock them down as well. So I think Josh Emmett has the power edge here. I think he's gonna, even though Danny Gibb probably might have more volume, it's gonna be like the Aldo Font fight where Emmett is landing more meaningful strikes and he walks away with the decision win.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you in that one. But yeah, I was talking about this one's on the prelims, but someone else is on the prelims. A former UFC champion, Dominic Cruz, is on the prelims, and he's taking on Pedro Munoz in a phenomenal fight. I'm looking forward to this one. Dominic Cruz returning after a win against. Oh my god, it slipped my head.
The win was over Casey Kenny.
Yeah, Casey Kenny, a great prospect, getting the job done. But there's one thing that with Dominic Cruz is when he comes into a fight, his footwork is going to be incredible. That's what he's known for. His boxing is going to be sharp, and he comes at weird angles. And I feel like this is obviously going to be the same fight. He's going to come in how he always does. But the main factor I've got in this fight is Pedro Munoz will not be able to catch Dominic Cruz coming in or out. I feel like he's going to be too quick, too sharp. Dominic Cruz is going to use his footwork as we've seen him doing his whole career, and I feel like he's just not going to be able to beat Cruz to the punch, and I feel like Cruz is going to get Pedro Munoz frustrated in this one.
This is a very tough fight to pick because for me Dominic Cruz is definitely not the fighter that he used to be in my opinion. Back in the day, one of the greatest of all times, beat Demetrius Johnson, beat Joseph Benavidez twice, was one of the best fighters of all time. But it's very clear that he's kind of he's a little slower these days, and he's a fighter that relied on speed back in the day, and now he does not have it like he used to. And Pedro Munoz has big power in his hands, so I'm thinking that Dominic Cruz will try to use his head movement, and he might just not be quick enough to get out of the way. And I think Pedro Munoz will clip Dominic Cruz at some point in this fight. And there's no doubt Munoz has the power advantage in this one. Also, the calf kicks, that's going to be a difference maker in this fight because Dominic Cruz is very reliant on his footwork. And how do you take away footwork? You take it away with that calf. So that's going to be a big tool for Pedro in this fight. One thing to note here as well, Dominic Cruz actually won the third round against Casey Kenny with his wrestling. Took down Casey Kenny, a judo black belt, and held him down. And that's a concern for me here as well because Pedro Munoz loves his guillotines. He has one of the best guillotines in the UFC. And if he goes for the guillotine, and just like we saw with Maki Pitolo and Dusko Todorovic, if you don't get that guillotine, you lose the position and your opponent is on top. And if Pedro can't get up, Dominic Cruz could bank around just like that. So it's a very tough fight for me to pick. I think this one goes to the decision like most Cruz fights do. And but at the end of the day, I think the calf kicks and the power edge and also Cruz slowing down a little bit will be the difference here. And I think Pedro wins a decision here.
Yeah, Pedro Munoz takes a tip out of Henry Cejudo's book, and really, put on a performance that he did. It could be a good night for Pedro Munoz, but I'm going to reside on the side of Dominic Cruz in this one. I hope he gets it done. But what that's a tough fight to pick. But what I'm confident with in this one is a heavyweight matchup in the prelims. It's still crazy to see, Tai Tuivasa in the prelims because this guy, you can put him on the main card of any pay-per-view because there's one thing that with Tai Tuivasa, he's bringing the entertainment, he's bringing the heat, and he's bringing a knockout. And this is what I'm seeing in this fight. I think Tai Tuivasa knocks out Augusto Sakai in round one, and I think he sends him to the Shadow Realm. And he jumps that cage and does another shoey again. We've seen Sakai in the last two fights. He's been finished, and I feel like he's going to get finished once again in the hands of Tai Tuivasa.
Man, I got to disagree with you on this one. Tai Tuivasa, in my opinion, has been subject to easier matchups in his last couple fights. If you remember that little skit Tai Tuivasa was on, those were legit top 10 fighters or top 15 guys. And Tai Tuivasa simply got outclassed by them. They were Junior Dos Santos, Blago Ivanov, and Sergey Spivak. And I believe that Augusto Sakai is actually better than two out of those three guys. Augusto Sakai, he has a legit gas tank for a heavyweight. Um, he also has a pretty good output as well. Also a BJJ black belt. And that's really a big difference maker when you're fighting Tai Tuivasa. If Tai Tuivasa can't land the fight ending bomb early, he's gonna be tired, and I don't think Sakai will be. Sakai will I think Sakai will attack the body. I think he's gonna break Tai Tuivasa. And he does have a 59-second KO of Marcin Tybura. I think he can knock out Tai Tuivasa here. Tai is going to swing wild. I think Sakai cracks him in that second round and puts him to sleep. I think we might see Sakai doing a shoey after who knows. So I really think that Sakai is the much better fighter here. The only doubt with Sakai is his chin, because in the last fight against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, we know that Jairzinho Rozenstruik can knock out anybody on the planet. So when you get clipped by Jairzinho, really not too critical of that loss, quite honestly. And the Alistair Overeem fight, Tai Tuivasa simply does not have the skills to replicate anything of what Alistair Overeem did. Does not have the gas tank or the ground game to do it. So yeah, I think Sakai is going to remind people why he's in the top 10, and I think he's going to send Tuivasa back to those unranked matchups, guys like Harry Hunsucker.
Yeah, definitely a possibility, and it's probably a larger possibility than what I was saying. As you mentioned, Sakai, he's fought some good names. Fought in the hands over Alistair Overeem, and then obviously Jairzinho Rozenstruik. But man, seeing Sakai being finished in his last two, and obviously against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who would not get knocked out against the biggie boy. But I think Tai Tuivasa, that first round, I talked about Michael Chandler. If the MMA fight was a one round, he would be champion of the lightweight division. And Tai Tuivasa, I believe so as well. If it was that one round in the heavyweight division, he could be.
Francis Ngannou's in the division, right?
Oh, you know what? Oh my God.
Yeah, that's very incorrect. I think Stipe knocks him out in the first round. You're way off. I think you're overhyping Tai Tuivasa way too much here.
I need to put the shoeies down. I was absolutely drinking too many there. But anyway, but before I was getting carried away. But yeah, Francis Ngannou, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, but if there was one round inside the UFC, Tai Tuivasa would definitely be up there in the division. But yeah, that first round has always been Tai Tuivasa. He's always game. He's sharp. And if he lands one bomb, it could be lights out. And I see him connecting early on and getting this one done. In round one. But man, Sakai, he could, as you mentioned, as you were talking, he could take this one to the ground and suffer and make a Tai Tuivasa. As we've seen it in the past, Tai Tuivasa, when he got put on his back by JDS, he did like a fish out of water.
Yeah, Tai Tuivasa, he actually got cut after his loss to Spivak. But yeah, the UFC recognized that he could make a comeback, and he has. But I think it's going to be ended by Sakai. Let's move on to Jordan Wright versus Bruno Silva. Not the flyweight Bruno Silva, the middleweight Bruno Silva. I think this breakdown is super easy. Super easy. I don't even have to go too deep into this. Bruno Silva is very much a first round knockout kind of guy. He has that kind of one punch KO power that'll put you away. And who's he fighting? A guy in Jordan Wright who has a really bad chin. That chin is terrible. He fought Anthony Hernandez, a submission guy, and he got straight up starched on the Contender Series. But is that on his record? No, because Anthony Hernandez was enjoying a little bit of devil's lettuce earlier in that week. So that's why it's not on his record. But the guy's very chinny. He also got knocked out by Joaquin Buckley. I think Bruno Silva has ridiculous power, and I think this is going to be a really easy fight for him. I really do. I don't care if Jordan Wright wants to outstrike him for a little bit. He's going to get clipped big time and put away.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we also talked about this in his last fight. We talked about Jordan Wright, how, if you look at his record, how many, the cans he's fought, the records. We've talked about that. But, he surprised both of us in that matchup. And but if he wins this one, surely we would never write off Jordan Wright. But I just don't see a way he wins it. If you look at, the record of Bruno Silva, he's bring some incredible guys. We're talking about, Alexander Shlemenko. I don't know if you're fond of him, but a Russian MMA legend who's fought over at Bellator for a few years. He fought an M1 Challenge, M1 Global. Oh man, he's brought some good guys. And since he's been inside the UFC, he's 2-0. He knocked out Andrew Sanchez and knocked out Wellington Turman. But I believe this will be his third fight winning streak inside the UFC, and all three of them come with a finish. I think this is going to be another early finish that we're going to see in this card. And I feel like if you look at the card early on and towards the the middle stages, I feel like this is going to really set the tone for the big fights at the end, because I believe we're going to see a lot of knockouts early on.
Yeah, that's kind of been the tradition for these big pay-per-views. We see a lot of crazy knockouts on the prelims, gets us hyped up for the main card. I think this will be no difference. I think Bruno Silva walks away with a performance of the night bonus without a doubt, putting away
100%.
Jordan Wright in spectacular fashion. And we'll move on to the early prelims. My goodness, this card is very stacked. You got Andre Muniz, who's actually ranked, fighting Eric Anders. I think this fight is a really tremendous matchup between two middleweights. Andre Muniz, what can you say about him? He, in his last fight, he broke the great Jacare Souza's arm in the first round with an armbar. Jacare Souza refused to tap, of course. And Eric Anders, on the other side, actually never been submitted in his MMA career. Even though he's not a really good offensive grappler, he does well for himself defensively. And he does hit like a truck. Muniz does not have the best of chains. He's been knocked out several times. So for me, I truly think this fight ends inside the distance. It's just going to be about who gets their game going. But if I really couldn't trust Muniz to submit Jacare just because Jacare is such a high-level grappler, but after what he did to him, I'm going to trust Muniz to submit just about anybody in the UFC. So that's my pick here. Muniz, first round submission.
100%, I agree. I thought you were going the other way for a minute. I was going to be like, wow. But yeah, you said this is a good matchup, but I believe it's, if you look at the odds, I think that's closer than what this fight is going to be. I think Andre Muniz is, as you mentioned, he's top 15 in the world. He just submitted and broke Jacare Souza's arm, and now he's fighting, no disrespect to Eric Anders, obviously, but now he's fighting Eric Anders, who's just beat Darren Stewart twice. I say beat, but he had that legal knee. He was on his way to beating him. And then obviously he got that win against Darren Stewart in his last fight. I feel like Andre Muniz should have got a tougher matchup in his next fight, and I believe this is a short notice step in for both of them.
Yeah, I truly believe that that the advantage is so big for Muniz on the ground, and I think he'll be the first guy to submit Eric Anders on this card. I'm very puzzled as to why this one is lower than Jordan Wright, Bruno Silva, when they're in the same division, and you got rankings on the line here. Makes zero sense to me, but we'll move on to Miranda Maverick versus Aaron Blanchfield. I'm just going to start this by saying I think they're pushing Aaron Blanchfield way too quick. So Aaron Blanchfield, if I'm not mistaken, she's just 21 years of age, and they put her in there against Sarah Alpar. All right, she dominates Sarah Alpar. It looks great. I was like, man, she's going to be in the rankings maybe end of 2022, maybe. No, they signed her up to fight Macy Barber immediately after on short notice. It's very puzzling to me that that they have somebody so early in their career in Blanchfield with one win. They just launch her right into the rankings. It makes no sense to me. Miranda Maverick is a much more experienced and advanced fighter. I think Miranda Maverick wins this 30-27. I believe Miranda has the strength, striking, and grappling advantage here. Aaron Blanchfield, she's going to be improving constantly, but it's very simple to me that Miranda Maverick is much more advanced at this point. And Aaron Blanchfield will do well enough not to get finished. I'll just say that. But it's a very puzzling matchup to me because Blanchfield is just so early in her career.
I agree, and 100%. And if you look at Miranda Maverick's last fight against Macy Barber, that, in my opinion, that shouldn't be a loss. She should that should have been a win for her that night. Macy Barber should have took the L, but she didn't. She got the gift of the judges. But Man Maverick, we saw in the last fight, she looked phenomenal. Didn't get the luck of the judges. I thought she beat Macy Barber, but that was the matchup I wanted: Macy Barber versus Miranda Maverick. And now we see prospect versus prospect again. Miranda Maverick versus Erin Blanco. But as you mentioned. Erin Blanchfield. But as you were saying, this is a push too quick for Erin. I believe the Miranda Maverick matchup is a little bit too much for her at this moment. Would she be able to beat Miranda Maverick? Yes, but not yet. I think this is a push too quick for the UFC. But if it does pay off, it's an incredible move by the UFC, but I believe it's not going to pay off. As you mentioned, this is a 30-27 written all over. So she's the better grappler. She's definitely the better striker. And this is a one that we're going to look back on next week and be like, where does there, do we see, now we let Erin Blanchfield take a step back from here, get some wins, and, maybe take another shot at it. But, as you mentioned, she's 22 years old, 22 years of age. So she's definitely, if she does lose this fight, she's definitely still got a future. But yeah, too quick, too much of a push for the UFC. And I feel like the Miranda Maverick is gonna get back into the win column, 30-27, as you were saying.
All right, we'll move on to the flyweight matchup. We're talking about Alex Perez versus Matt Schnell. Alex Perez, in his last fight, headlined a pay-per-view against Davison Figueiredo. A lot of people kind of forgot about that pay-per-view. It was back in November of 2020, and he got submitted in the first round with a guillotine. And he's fighting a guy in Matt Schnell, who is a tremendous grappler, guy that definitely would be the kind of guy to go for the guillotine right away. So this is a really fun matchup for me. This is one where you can definitely see a finish happening, and I agree with Perez being a 3-1 favorite in this matchup because I simply believe it on the feet. He's a much more powerful striker. Sure, Matt Schnell's boxing has looked really good, but his fight against Rogerio Bontorin was just very unimpressive. He looked very tired, just looked a step behind. He's just very off that night. And if he looks off against Perez, I think he gets knocked out. Matt Schnell has been knocked out many times, and I think Perez packs the punch to get him out of there. Assuming Matt Schnell doesn't twist him into a knot on the ground. But Perez himself is a fantastic grappler, ton of finishes. And might I not mention, he is the most successful Dana White Contender Series alum. He's the only one to ever get a title shot. So this is a guy that the UFC believes in, and I think they matched him up here really well.
You mentioned there, it's crazy to think that, this time last year, on November, he was headlining a pay-per-view against Davison Figueiredo. Didn't go his way, but, he's made it. He's made it to the top. He's fought for the belt. He's reached the highest of heights, and now he's on the early prelims of the next pay-per-view that he's on. It's crazy how this game works. But now he's fighting Matt Schnell on a, I feel like this is a good matchup for him, a good favorable matchup. And I feel like, as you mentioned, he's got the power to get this one done. And we've seen Matt Schnell knocked out unconscious multiple times in his career. And I believe we will see him get knocked out once again in this fight. But there was one fight where I really doubted Matt Schnell. And I believe that was against Tyson Nam, where I believed he was going to get knocked out unconscious. And, he did put on a good performance, split decision win. But if you look at his last performance, as you mentioned, and nothing too impressive. But yeah, he has been knocked out against Alexandre Pinchota, Rob Font, and also against Hector Sandoval. So Alex Perez is going to fall into the hands of a knockout win against Matt Schnell. And I feel like it's going to be quite an early one. I feel like the sharpness and the freshness is going to play a factor. But man, headlining the pay-per-view to now falling on the early prelims. And this game is crazy.
Yeah, it sure is. And Ryan Hall, he had a very crazy loss against Ilia Topuria back in July. It was a really weird loss because the guy, Ryan Hall, his specialty are those leg locks. So what did he do? All he did was those Imanari rolls, and he did one too many, and he left himself exposed. And Ili Taporia straight up slept him with that ground and pound, and that's kind of what I expected. But this time around, this is a huge step down in competition. Ili Taporia is a guy that I see fighting for a belt within the next 2 years. But we're talking about Derek Minner now. I guess you could say somewhat of a journeyman in this game, 26-12. Even though he fancies himself a grappler, he's been submitted several times. Several times he's been submitted. And in his last fight against Derek Minner, against Darren Elkins, he was looking really good in the first round, but in classic Darren Elkins fashion, Darren Elkins TKOs him in the second round. This is such a tough fight for Derek Minner because I think standing Ryan Hall has that nice little karate style. He's gonna pick him apart from distance. I really don't think Minner has much for him on the feet. Minner could clip him, I guess, but Ryan Hall's fought better strikers like Artem Lobov, not got a clip. So I think Ryan Hall on the feet wins this fight. And if we see it go to the ground, Derek Minner, he's gonna have to unlearn everything he knows, and I think he gets caught in a submission. Leg lock, rear naked choke, whatever Ryan Hall decides on the night.
100%, I agree with you. As you mentioned, Derek Miller, he's a good BJJ practitioner, but he has been submitted in the past. But he puts himself in positions where he's vulnerable. And if you're putting yourself in positions where you're vulnerable against Ryan Hall. Yeah, this guy is known to be one of the best 50-50 leg lock practitioners out there. And I believe this might be another scenario where we see a 50-50 position and just him falling on the wrong side of it and getting submitted. Derek Miller, he's submitted TJ Laramine. He's submitted some good guys inside the UFC, but he's not going to be able to submit a guy like Ryan Hall, 100%. And I believe Ryan Hall will be able to get the better of him on this night and submit Derek Miller.
Yep, that's a really confident pick from me. And we'll move on to a pick that, in my opinion, is not as confident. I think Randy Costa will get a first round KO against Danny Kelly. If you look at Randy Costa's record, all first round knockout wins. But as soon as he sees the second round, it's not as pleasant for him. He fought Adrian Yanez in his last fight, and Adrian Yanez is a really good prospect in this bantamweight division. And he was piecing them up with a jab. He was overwhelming Yanez and had him hurt bad. But once the second round came around, the gas tank was not the same. And he was basically broken by Giannis' striking. And the body shots were one too many. He folded. He's fighting a guy in Tony Kelly, on the other hand, who's actually really battle-tested in his UFC debut. Fought Kai Kamaka III, who, by the way, I have no idea why the UFC cut him. These Bellator now doing pretty well.
Just got a win over in Bellator against the Jesus. Something like that.
Beast. But I will tell you that Tony Kelly is battle tested. And then after that, he fought Ali Al-Qazi. Another guy I don't think the UFC should have released because I actually thought that Ali won that fight. He got enough control time, in my opinion, to walk away with the win there. But the judges unanimously gave it to Tony Kelly. So Tony Kelly's 1-1 in the UFC. I simply don't think he's a good enough striker or a good enough grappler in that first round to survive the fury of Randy Costa, because Randy Costa is just so dangerous in that first round. Even a guy as good as Yanez was, nearly finished in that first round. So I think Randy Costa overwhelms him early and gets a really quick finish.
I'm just saying, I agree with you. As you mentioned, Yanez looked overwhelmed. How good on the box of Randy Costa. We knew he could bang. We knew he could knock people out. He's put himself in vulnerable positions in the past. If you look at his debut against Brendan Davis, who's recently made his comeback to the UFC. But that was one of the most exciting debuts I've ever seen in my life. It was a back and forth wild fight. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch it. It's phenomenal. But there's one thing that we knew about Costa is that we knew he could put anyone out, put lights out. But how good was it? How good was his technical boxing? And I feel like he really showed that in his last fight against Adrian Yanez, who's one of the best boxers that we probably have in the bantamweight division. We got some really good guys in that bantamweight division. We got Pete Yan, Rob Font, Jose Aldo, Sean O'Malley, and I see Adrian Yanez being up there with them guys. And Randy Costa with that jab, Oh my god, it was phenomenal. It was lightning quick. It was accurate. It was sharp. And in this fight, he's going to be able to get the best of Tony Kelly in this one. And I feel like we're going to see Randy Costa back in the win column. And even though it was a loss against Adrian Yanez, I believe he's going to have confidence because I think that fight showed him hang up there with some of the best in the world. Even though Yanez is not fully developed, either I don't think Randy Costa is fully developed. These guys have got a lot to learn and they've got a long way to go. But Randy Costa will start a winning streak here with Tony Kelly.
Yeah, if Tony Kelly was more of a vet, I would have more confidence, but that's not the case here. I think Costa gets a highlight reel finish, and we'll move on to the opener of the fight card. I think this one definitely ends in a finish as well. Robertson actually has I believe she's tied for most finishes in the history of this division's, in the history of the women's flyweight division, and she's fighting Priscilla Cachoeira, who definitely has a serious power for this division. But it's very clear to me that that in the first and second round, that's when Cachoeira can win this fight. But Robertson, on the other hand, she can fight pretty well for the full 15. But quite honestly, I think that Cachoeira's get-up game is awful. It's awful. In her last fight against Gina Mazzani is not UFC level, if you ask me. And she looked like a minus 300 favorite when she was out grappling Priscilla Cachoeira. But as soon as they got on the feet, the difference in power and just meanness made a big difference. And Cachoeira got Mazzani out of there. Mazzani just doesn't react well when she gets hit. And the same can be said for Robertson, but I think Robertson is a much better offensive BJJ player than Mazzani is. And Robertson has so many submissions on the record. I think she wraps one up very quickly here against Cachoeira and gets a quick finish. I honestly think that Robertson is the best BJJ player Cachoeira has faced besides Valentina Shevchenko.
100%, I agree with you there. If you think about Jillian Robertson, there's one thing that puts your head is grappling. She loves to grapple. Since her last fight against Miranda Maverick, I think she's had 4 or 5 grappling fights. So that's her bread and butter. That's what she loves to do. And as you mentioned, this is the best practitioner Cachoeira has faced since facing Valentina Shevchenko, and I believe she's going to fall in the hands of a submission loss. And Jillian Robertson, if she gets on your back, it's pretty much game over. And I'm going to see a rear naked choke win in this one.
Yeah, that's what I'm picking as well. I agree with Robertson being a humongous favorite here because the only 2 wins for Cachoeira are Gina Mazzani and Shanna Dobson, who are complete bottom of the food chain people. And Jillian Robertson was actually a ranked fighter before it was taken away by Miranda Maverick. So I think this is a huge discrepancy in skill, and it'll be a perfect way to open up UFC 269 with a finish.
100%, I agree. If you look at these first 2 fights here, right here, the two title fights at the top of the card, it's phenomenal. I can't wait to see it, all go down. But yeah, 2 title fights: Amanda Nunes versus Julia Pena, and obviously you got Charles Oliveira against Justin Poirier at the top of the bill. The main event of the pay-per-view. It's phenomenal. I can't absolutely wait. It's going to be an absolute night to remember. I feel like there's going to be some knockouts on this card that we will be talking about at the end of the year because they're going to be candidates. And when you talk about Sean O'Malley, he's on the card. He's always going to, whether he's on the winner's side or we've seen him in the loser side. There's always something to talk about Sean O'Malley. So I believe there will be a topic that we will be talking about against Sean O'Malley next week. But yeah, I'm excited to see it go down. 269 is finally came. I feel like we've been waiting for this one quite a while. I know we were blessed with 267, 268, but 269, man, I feel like we've been waiting quite a while, and Dustin Poirier gets his well-deserved shot at the undisputed lightweight title, and Charles Oliveira looks to defend his title for the first time. I can't wait. It's phenomenal. I believe we've been talking for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Yeah, is there any topics that you have left to talk about, or do you want to let them go?
Yeah, I'll just wrap things up, guys. There's going to be a lot of competition for bonuses. I'll say that right now. And there might be some debate. Probably going to be a card where they give away 6 bonuses. That's how good it was, just like this past card. So make sure to enjoy the fights.
Yeah, but actually, I just thought of a few topics on my head. Obviously, we got the UFC London card, but I feel like there's one thing out there. We got Rashad Evans.
Yeah, Rashad Evans, one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time. He ended his UFC run on a bad skid. Just wasn't the same guy, and made the strange decision of cutting weight, and he just looked very poor. Lost to Sam Alvey of all people, and now he's back in Eagle FC. He's a completely different guy mentally, but I don't know how that'll translate into the cage. So I have no idea what to expect. I hope he wins because you wouldn't want a guy like that damaging his legacy at this stage. He is 42, so unless they give him a favorable matchup, it's probably gonna lose.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. And then the main event of that one, we got Tyrone Spong versus Antonio Bigfoot Silva, which is Antonio. And Tyrone Spong, known as one of the heaviest kickers and the hardest punchers in boxing and kickboxing, against Antonio Bigfoot Silva, who could pretty much, no disrespect, could fall with a gust of wind.
Yeah, that chin has been gone. The guy's really been through it. Been knocked out cold so many times. He's been in those wars that we'll remember forever. But yeah, when you're getting knocked out by Gabriel Gonzaga and BKFC, it's time to hang it up. And unfortunately, he hasn't. I think he's going to be on Spong's highlight reel after that.
And then just the last one to top it off is we kind of mentioned it earlier on, but Kevin Lee getting cut from the UFC. What's next for Kevin Lee? And one of the fighters when he came into the side to the UFC, he had a huge future ahead of him, but just didn't quite get to the heights that we expected him to reach. Fought for that interim lightweight title against Tony Ferguson. But after that, it spiraled downhill for him, and losing his last fight against Daniel Rodriguez, and man, where does he end up here? I think the next, the smart move for him, maybe PFL or Bellator or one PFL or one championship. I think is smart for him next.
Yeah, he's got a ton of good options. He's still an elite fighter. He actually, in my opinion, you could have given him the first round against Charles Oliveira. He was competitive with the current champion right now. At welterweight, I don't know what it looks like for him. That's where he'll stick around. So I'm hoping he decides to go back to lightweight at some point. But for now, at welterweight, not too sure about how well he'll be performing in those organizations. But I'm sure he'll get a pay raise.
100%, I agree. But that ends the episode there. It was a fantastic episode. We talked about Aldo versus Rob Font, a phenomenal phenomenal fight night. Produced some absolute firecrackers and some crazy knockouts. But a fight night pay-per-view that is going to top that is this weekend, UFC 269. Guaranteed to have some crazy knockouts. I can't absolutely wait. And then that main event on its own is phenomenal. And that co-main event as well. Seeing the greatest of all time, Amanda Nunes return is always fun. And I'm excited to see this weekend. I'm sure Oscar Silva is excited. But, we'll talk to you next week where we will have some topics to talk about and what happened this weekend. And thank you guys for tuning in. It's been an hour and 37 minutes long. And we'll see you next week when we get to talk and unwrap it all. Thank you very much for tuning in. And we'll see you.